So we're middle of Chav Tes Amud Beis. Amarava. Amarav. Achla kula chutz mi beis roiva. Kana kula chutz mi beis roiva. If someone was, in our classic case, Ruvain is the original owner, or the person who's the ma'arer, the person who is claiming, who has proof that he was the original owner, and now Shimon has been sitting on the land for 3 years. And in those 3 years, he ate the whole thing, meaning he made use of the entire property, except for a base raiva, a small amount, a quarter of a cup. So the Rava says he's kind of the whole thing, except for that quarter of a cup. Since he didn't make use of that quarter of a cup, it's not, he doesn't have a chazak on it. And he doesn't have a raya to his claim that he bought it from, that Shimon bought it from Reuben. Amravuna Breda Vishua, V'loy Amaran. This is only true that he's not kind of that extra quarter of a kav. El de Bazrihi. It's only if that quarter of a kav is capable of being cultivated. But if it's a Havala Bazrihi, but if it's like a parking lot and there's nothing you can do to cultivate, it's impossible to grow on it. Kanila Agavara. Then you say he made use of whatever he could make use of. That quarter of a kav was precluded from being used. It was impossible to be used, and therefore there's no way to be kainet. There's no alternative, and only so you say that he's kainet together with the other kar. Maskal Rabibi Barabaya. Rabibi Barabaya does not like this conclusion that was saying that if there's an area that can't be used to grow zroyim, to grow crops, that there's no other way to be kainet. There's no way to indicate that you're making a chazak in it. The only way you can make a chazak is if by using everything else. And once you use everything else, then automatically it's coming. Elamayata, according to this, tzunma b'mayikna. We have the tzunma between two properties. It means a foundation underground. So if you buy a property, you buy a parking lot. How are you supposed to be kainet? How are you supposed to make a chazaka? That would mean, theoretically, that if you are kind of a karka that's not able to be cultivated, you would have to hold on to the star forever, or else the original owner could always come back. He could come back after 10 years and say, it's mine. And the guy says, oh, I still have my star. Come back another 10 years later, and then he gets it because the guy lost the star. Hello. I'm sorry? Ella ba'ukumi ba chiyusa u'mishtach ba peri. So Rabbi Abaya says it's not true what you said. He disagrees with what we said, that there's no way to be kind of karka that can't be cultivated. You can use it to let your animals stay there. You could use it as a corral, or you could use it to dry out your peiros. There are minimal uses that you can make of it, and therefore he would say if you have a quarter of a kav of area that can't be cultivated, the muchzik Shimon is required to use it in this minimal ways. If he doesn't do that, he's not going to be kainet, because you have to at least make use of it in some way. Just like by Yitzunma, an entire land that can't be used, he has to use it for his animals or to dry peiros. So too in this case, we're of a quarter of a kav, he also, in order to be kainet, he's going to have to use it in some way. He can't just leave it doing nothing. A new case. And this is just, the next blot is all a series of different cases. Reuven said to Shimon, Reuven, as in our typical case, is the Marakama. He's the original person claiming to be the original owner. And he says to his friend Shimon, what are you doing on my land? Amalei. And Shimon says back to him, Zavinta, I bought it from you, and I used it, I was muhsik in it. Amalei, he said to him, your chazaka is flawed, because you're claiming that you sat in this house and you used this house all by yourself for the last 3 years. These whole 3 years, I've been living in one of the apartments here, in one of the rooms, and you were just my guest. I was living in it. You didn't have a full chazaka. He's claiming the chazaka was flawed, and if what he's saying is true, if the original owner was actually living in the house in a room, then that's not a chazaka for Shimon, because Shimon could be just a guest of Ruvain's. Another way of looking at it is it's a macha. Usually you have to be meicha. Ruvain, the original owner, has to be meicha if Shimon is living in it. But if he's living in it, he doesn't have to be meicha. He says, "I'm here." Also, the kameder of Nachman. They went there to ask Rav Nachman, "What's it in?" Amalei zil brar achilasta. He said to Shimon, he said, the person who's trying to make a chazaka, listen, you have to have a irrefutable chazaka. And he's claiming there's a flaw in your chazaka. You have to prove that your chazaka is unimpeached. And therefore, if as the facts are now, if you don't bring an additional raya, if you could bring Adim that say that what Reuven is saying that he was living in the house the last 3 years is untrue, then you could keep it. But until you bring a better proof, you don't have a chazak. Amalei Rava said back to him, Hachi Dino, Rava said, no, this guy has a chazak. What are you trying to say? You're trying to say that he has to get out because you're claiming that you were in the house with him? He has a chazaka. His chazaka makes him a muhsik. Right? You're trying to take away from him. Now, I know that it's a bit tempting to say that the other person is really Reuven is in our mind is the original owner. But we don't know if that's the case. It could be that there was, like we said, there's a competing balance of tainus. On the one hand, Shimon shouldn't have lost his star. On the other hand, after 3 years, he has a right to lose the star. But now Reuven's saying that you didn't have a right to lose the star because I was in the house. But Shimon is saying, but I was in the house. So you're going back and forth. And the bottom line is, if Shimon has a chazaka, then it should belong to him. So you should have, if you want to take it away from him, say his chazaka is not valid, you have to prove your point. We find a different machlekes Rav and Rav Nachman where they come out on exactly the opposite sides, and it seems to contradict what they're saying in this machlekes. Dahuda amalei lechaber kol nichsei de beber sisin meza mazvina loch. He said, Reuven said to Shimon, I'm selling you the property of Bar Sisa. Now, normally what that means is the classic meaning of that is the property that I bought, that Reuven bought from Bar Sisan, I am now selling to you, Shimon. However, in addition to, or maybe in place of, Reuven had some property that was called the Bay Bar Sisan that he claimed he didn't buy from Bar Sisan. It was just, that was the name that it was called. Amalei halav the Bay Bar Sisani, Bakruya de Mekaya. Reuven claimed, listen, I'm selling you the property that I got from Bar Sisan. That's the translation of what I said. I'm selling you the property I bought from Bar Sisan. In addition to that, I have some property that's called Bar Sisan land that I didn't buy from them. Or let's put it another way. If you put it like, let's say he told him, I'm selling you my McDonald property. And he said, Reuven said to Shimon, I'm selling to you the property I bought from McDonald. And he has two pieces of property, one which he did buy from McDonald, and another property that's called the McDonald Field. And he says, listen, this McDonald Field has nothing to do with the purchase from McDonald. It's just that, maybe 10 years ago, there was a worker named McDonald and we named it after him. It has nothing to do. When I told you I'm selling you the property that I got from McDonald or from the Bay Bar Sisan, I wasn't referring to this, and that wasn't what we agreed. We agreed I would sell you the property that I bought from Bar Sisan. Also, the Kameder of Nachman, they came and asked Rav Nachman, Okma biyad lekech. So in this case, Rav Nachman did not say that Shimon has to prove that. Before we said that you have to prove that your chazaka is good. Over here, he sided with Shimon. He said, "Listen, it's called the Bei Bar Sisan. Probably It's what you bought, what Ruvain bought from Bar Sisan, and it's included in the sale. Amalei Rav Adina Hachi, Hamayt Mechaver Olavaraya. We don't know for sure whether it's the Bei Bar Sisan. This Sada the Bei Bar Sisan is really part of the what Ruvain purchased, and now Shimon is coming to say that it's included in the sale. In the meantime, it's Ruvain's field. You have to prove you're a Moitzi Mechaber El Varaya. And again, so Rav Nachman came out in this case like the purchaser. In all our cases, when we're talking about the muhsik is claiming he's a purchaser. So this over here he came out like the purchaser, who'd be the muhsik in our equivalent case. And Rava came out like the marakama or the seller. So kasha the Rava kasha of Nachman the Rav Nachman. That which Rava over here says that we give it Hamaitze Mechavere Olavaraya, and therefore it stays with the original owner. Hasam Moicher Koi Benifse. Hachalikeach Koi Benifse. You're talking about Hamaitze Mechavere Olavaraya. So in the previous case, the muhsik is literally, what does a muhsik mean? He's saying I have a Pesach's Gimel Shanam because I'm living on it. So he's currently living on it. So so he currently has possession of the land. So trying to kick him out, so trying to take it away from him is Amaitzi Mechaber El Orai. Therefore, the burden of proof lies on the original owner. And as opposed to over here, the seller, the one who's selling the Bei Bar Sisan, he's holding on to all the property, and the purchaser is saying that the Bei Bar Sisan is included. So therefore, that in this case, the Hamaitze Mechaber Al Varaya shifts over to the burden of proof shifts over to Leikech. The Rav Nachman, Nami Lekasha. Rav Nachman is also certainly not a kasha. Kivin the Amalei the Bei Bar Sisan, or Mikra the Bei Bar Sisan, the Ledi Day Ramal Gluya the Lab the Bei Bar Sisan. He says that no, we're saying like it's a half and half. We don't know for sure whether this property identified as the Bei Bar Sisan was sold along with originally from the Bei Bar Sisan, or was it just named that? He says chances are, if that's the name, that's where it came from. So it's not a 50-50 chance. It's 99% that it was purchased now, and that's why it's called the Bei Bar Sisan. On the other hand, over here, if the purchaser, so that's why we side with the purchaser in the case of the Bei Bar Sisan. But over here, in the case of a muhsik, even what the reason why he's believed is because he says that we believe him when he says he lost his star because he's holding on to 3 years, and 3 years a person normally loses his star. But let's say he would have held on to his star, and Reuven would have said, "I don't believe the star is valid." Shimon would have the obligation to be Mekayim his star. Similarly, if he wants to prove that that it's his, that the owner was not living together with him, it's on him to be Mekayim. He has to have a perfect claim. If his claim is unverified, just like if he had the star, if it would be unverified, he has to prove that it's valid. So too his claim, which is in the place of the star, his claim that he lived on the property for 3 years, has to be verified that there's no flaw in it, that the owner didn't stay in it. So therefore, the burden of proof shifts on to the lekeach, onto the muhsik, that he has to prove that the owner wasn't staying together with him. Okay, new case. Again, Ruvain is the person claiming to be the original owner, and Shimon is living on it. So Ruvain says to Shimon, "My boy's behind base. Why are you on my house? I've been living in 1212 Avenue N for 50 years. What are you doing here? Amalech, minach zavinte. I bought it from you, and I've been here for 3 years. Amalei, Beshuki Broyhava. He says, I've been on a 3-year-long business trip. I've been out of town. So therefore, I had no opportunity to be Meicha. I had no idea that you were here. I think, Rafal, you asked something like this. Like,
Yeah.
what happens if practically the guy says there's a reason why I couldn't be Meicha and I wasn't around? Amalei. So that's a valid time. Amalei, but it's lisadi the chol shasa have asyut plus in yomi. So the Muchzik Shimon, who says he's been living here for 3 years, says to Reuben, who claims to have been on a 3 year business trip, but every year you came back for the summer and you were in town for a month. So why in that month did you register your objection, make a macha to the fact that I'm living in your house? He said, no, I wasn't coming home for vacation. I came home. It was part of my rounds. I was running around as people used to do. They used to go away for multiple years, and they would go do their business and do buying and selling. When I came home, I was very busy with buying and selling the whole time. I was in the shuk. I never got to check my ancestral home. Amarava Avedinish the Chol Plus and Yumi Tar Beshuka. Rava said that's a reasonable objection. A person taka can be so busy up to 30 days. Listen, if he was home for 6 months, then it would be objection. But 30 days, that's what people do. They go for 30 days to this town, 30 days to that town. And when he was home, he was also busy the entire time with business. He never had a chance to register the objection. And therefore, this chazaka is not going to be a valid chazaka because this person, the original owner, Ruvain, never had a chance to register his machal. Hahuda amalei lechabre. My boys, Bahayara. Ruvain says to Shimon, what are you doing in my land? Amalei, miplani la zavinta. Shimon says, I bought this property from Levi. He's not claiming, now remember, you always have to have a taina. It's not enough just to be a muhsik. You don't own the land by virtue of being machzik on it. It's just a proof that goes along with your taina. And in this case, his taina, Shimon's taina, is not that he bought it from Reuven. Rather, he bought it from a third party, from Levi. The Amali, the Zavimina. And you're the one who, and he told me, Levi told me that he bought it from you from Reuven. So Shimon is implicitly admitting that it did originally belong to Reuven. He's saying, I bought it from Levi, and Levi had bought it from you, Reuven. Amalei, Atlav Kamoidis, the high Ara Didihi. So when you're telling me that you bought it from Levi, and Levi says he got it from me, Reuven, so you're admitting that it originally was mine. And you didn't buy it from me. Zil, you should get out. You are not you're not the person that I have to argue with. So in this case, there was never a chazak. There was no discussion of a chazak. He's just coming with the taina that that he bought it. Shimon is coming and saying that he bought it from Levi, who bought it from Reuben, and Reuben saying, "Listen, you didn't buy it from me. I claim that it was never sold to Levi. So if you have a problem, go talk to Levi and get your money back from him. But I'm the owner. You admit that I'm the owner, so I don't have to deal with you. You don't have a star saying that you bought it from me. So get out of my land." Amaravadina Kamale, he's correct. Since even though Ruvain does not have any Adim to prove that he originally owned the land, but Shimon has admitted that Reuben owned the land, and Shimon is not sitting there with a star from Reuben. Maybe he has a star from Levi, but that's not Reuben's problem. Therefore, Ein Hanami, in this case, it's going to be Shimon's burden to prove that he could go to Levi and get his money back from Levi, or if he could bring a raya somehow that Reuven sold it to Levi, then he'll have a cognizable claim. Sagt Gemara, Hauda amalei lechaber, my boy is bayar. Reuven says to Shimon, what are you doing on this land? Amalei, and Shimon says back to him, Biplania zavina, I bought it from Levi, And I've been here for 3 years. Amalei, so Reuben says back to him, Reuben, who's claiming to be the original owner, Plana Gazlanahu. Levi is a fraud. He's a trickster, and he never bought it from me. And he went and sold it to you. You've been scammed. I hope you have good, good insurance because you got scammed by this guy. Amalei, for Isli Sadi, Dasoy ve'imlichiba. So Shimon says back to Reuven, you're saying that you never sold it to Levi, but I went to your office and I sat down by your desk and I said, what do you think of my idea that I want to buy this property from Levi? You're the one who advised me to buy it from Levi. How are you claiming that it didn't belong to Levi? Why did you tell me to buy it from Levi if it doesn't belong to Levi? You're claiming that you never sold it. Amalei, Hasheni Noyach li Harishan Kasha. He says, listen, you're right. You did come to my office and ask me if you should buy it. But I figured you're going to buy it from Levi. Levi is a tough guy. He's part of the mafia. I'm never getting it away from him. Once you buy it from Levi, then I'll be able to I'll present my proof that I'm the original Marakama, and and I'm gonna take it from you. So you don't have any taina. The reason why the chazaka doesn't help you over here because you don't have a taina. Your taina is you bought it from Levi, but you don't know that Levi was the owner. And I'm claiming that Levi wasn't the real owner. I is saying that I've I've admitted in a sense that Levi is the owner by advising me Shimon to buy it from Levi. I have a good excuse for that. Reuben has a good excuse. He says I was just trying to get it out of Levi's hands because he's impossible to deal with. You, I know, if I'm going to go through the legal process, I'll get it out of your hands. Amarava Dinaka Amalei. Rava says, this is a good taina. Even though, in theory, the fact that Reuven advised Shimon to buy the property from Levi would seem to indicate that Reuven had originally sold it to Levi, and therefore Shimon has a good taina that he bought it from Levi. But that's not the case because there are occasions where a person will advise someone to buy it, even though it doesn't belong to the person he's buying it from, for his own selfish reasons. And that's Reuben is not a good guy. What he's doing. I mean, I would not. It seems like he's being overlift naiver. I don't understand. This is a maybe I don't know. Maybe the Rishonim asked this. He's admitting that he gave Shimon advice that's now going to cost him money. How? So he's admitting to being Goyim Lifnei, which is a deraisa. I'm not sure how someone can claim that he did something. He's believed to say that he did something against the Torah, but that is what the Gemara's legal conclusion is. That Reuven is believed that he gave Shimon this advice for his own reasons, and it doesn't mean that he's conceding that Levi bought the property from him. Zak the Gemara. In fact, the Gemara essentially asks a kasha, Kaman ka'adman. L'chayra, this psak of Ravas is like Adman. Adman is a machlokes with the Rabbanan that we're going to say. And normally you wouldn't paskin like a Yachid Kneged the Rab, the Tanan. Ha'ir al-Asada. Someone, Ruvain, who in the same case like we just said, Shimon was a muhsik on it, and now Reuven is saying it belongs to me. And Shimon had purchased it from Levi. And Reuven was one of the Eidim on the purchase where Shimon bought it from Levi. Adnan says, just like when our original case where Reuven advised Shimon to buy the property, it makes no difference even if Reuven was signed as an aid in Shimon's purchase. He could say, listen, I just wanted to facilitate it getting into the hands of Shimon, so then I'll be able to pluck it from Shimon. The same sort. It's easier for me to deal with Shimon than it is to deal with Levi. The Chum disagree. They say, no, once Reuven went along with this sale from Levi to Shimon, he's demonstrated that he believes that it really belongs to Levi, and now we can't come and claim that he never sold it to Levi. So l'chayr it's shver on Rava. How could he pass him like Adman, who says that when Reuven acted as an aide, he loses his he keeps his chus, and not like the Rabbanan who say he loses his chus. So Rabbanan. You could be mechalik. Maybe the Rabbanan only say the din that he loses his chus. Hasam avadle ma'isa. In that case, where he became the aide, where Reuven became the aide, he can't then backtrack and say, "Oh, it really wasn't a good sale," because he didn't just give advice to Shimon. He actually he went into a bezdin and he sat down and signed his name to something that he knew was a fraud. You can't then say that I never sold it to Levi and Levi was. You can't participate with a physical act in a fraud. But as far as giving Shimon advice, that a person will say. My boy is Bahayara. There was a guy who said to his friend, "What are you doing on my land?" Reuven said to Shimon, "Why are you on my land?" I bought it from Levi, and I had 3 years of chazaka. Levi was a Gazlan, he never bought it from me. Amaleva Isli Sadi, the Osis Beurta, Amrit Li, Zavna Nehele. But I have Adim that you came to me, meaning you, Ruvain, came and wanted to buy the land from me, Shimon. Why would you be buying the land from me if it wasn't validly sold, if you hadn't sold it to Levi, who sold it to me? Why would you put down good money for something that you know doesn't belong to me? So you must have implicitly, I rejected your offer to sell, and now the next day you come to me in court and you say it doesn't belong to me. How could you offer to buy something from me? It doesn't belong to me. Amalei Amina Isvin Dinoi. He said to him, listen, I want my land. I don't care how I get it. I figured, listen, easiest way for me to get it is I'll just pay off the money. Many people, I don't know if anyone's ever been involved in landlord tenant disputes. A lot of times, you just got there's a guy who's not paying his rent, and you want to get him out of there. And sometimes the guy owes you $10,000. You got to pay him another $10,000 to get him out. You gotta do what you got to do. He wants his land. He's willing to pay for it, even though he knows it's his. Rava said this is a real thing. This does happen, and the fact that he offered to buy it doesn't mean that the fact that Ruvain, the original owner, offered to buy it doesn't mean that he was conceding that he sold it to Levi and Levi sold it to Shimon. Huda Malay Chabri, my boy is Pahayara. Again, Ruvain's asking Shimon, why are you on my land? Amalei mi planya zavine vechalta shani chazak. So Shimon says, I bought it from Levi, and I've been eating shnei chazaka. Amalei v'hanakitna shtara. But I have a star, the Zav that you say you bought it from Levi. I have a star that he sold it to me. 4 years ago. You're saying you're on this property for 3 years. You, Shimon, are saying you've been on it for 3 years. And you bought it from Levi, but I have a star that says Levi sold it to me 4 years ago. Amalei, Misav Shani Chazaka. And Shimon does not have a star. Shimon just has a chazaka on his side, and after 3 years, he doesn't have to hold on to the star. Amalei misav shani chazaka chlas shani kamina. Do you think when I said that I've been living on here for shnei chazaka, that I mean I'm just here for 3 years? Shnei chazaka tuva kamina. I really meant that I was there longer than you. You say you bought it 4 years ago. I've really been here for 5 years, and therefore my chazaka predates the date that you say you bought it from Levi. Therefore, it's mine. Amarava, he says, yeah, this is also a cognizable claim. This is a valid claim to say that, I called it Shani Chazaka because we call that any amount of time. You say, I was here at least 3 years, but you didn't mean to say that he was limiting it to 3 years. Zaktumar, however, Bahani Mili, the Achla Sheva, he has to claim that he was there for at least 7 years. Shimon has to have been there for 7 years because Ruvain is claiming that he got it 4 years ago. What's this Gimel in the Bach? Dach l'sheva shnin. The Kadam Chazaka, the high l'shtar the half, where the Chazaka was already complete before Ruvain has a raya that he purchased the land from Levi. Because let's say Shimon is only claiming that he bought it from Levi 6 years ago, and Shimon is claiming he got it from Levi 6 years ago, and he was sitting in a chazaka, and then 2 years after he bought it, Reuven has a star saying that he bought it from Levi. And now Shimon doesn't have any star in his hands. He's saying, I'm going with my chazaka. But his chazaka was only 2 years. So before Reuven got his star, so Reuven's saying, I made a macha. When I buy a star, that's a macha gedolah mizu. Rather than just going and getting Edim and saying to them, this is my land, I got a star that was signed by 2 Edim saying that it's my land. So I was meicha on your sale, I was meicha on your chazaka, and therefore you don't have a good chazaka. I think I remember that there's a question: why isn't there a chazaka in the last 4 years? Right? If it was, let's say, Shimon's muchzik for 6 years, so now Reuven made a macha. It sounds like once you make a macha, there's no need to make another macha 3 years later. Once you made one macha, you can't make a new chazaka after a macha. So since Reuven's star saying that he bought it from Levi is construed as a macha on Levi's purchase from 6 years ago, so therefore there's no need for Reuven to make an additional macha when Shimon stayed on it for another 4 years. Okay, we'll stop over here. Hashem will continue tomorrow at 7 o'clock.
Thank you. Have a great day.